Here comes Blaine.
There's Blaine.
And we're live.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the May 26th meeting of the University City Council to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Clay,
Present.
Councilmember Carr,
Present.
Councilmember McMahon,
Here.
Councilmember Hills,
Here.
Councilmember Kusick,
Here.
Councilmember Smotherson,
Here.
Mayor Crowe.
Here, thank you very much. Before you, you have the agenda which you've seen over the weekend. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Motion to approve by Ms. Carr, seconded by Mr. Kusick. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Before you, you have the minutes of May 11th, 2020, regular meeting of the University City Council. May I have a motion that the minutes be approved? Motion by Ms. Carr. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Clay. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Ms. Carr, you have an appointment, I believe you'd like
Yes,
to make.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to find it here. So I would like to appoint Gary Ehrenburg to the newly formed Commission on Stormwater Issues.
Is there a second?
Second.
I would.
Mr. Kusick, is there a discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Kusick,
Thank you, Mayor. And I also would like to, I'm proud to nominate Bob Christ to the Commission on Stormwater Issues.
there's a motion has been made. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Hales. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Patricia McQueen was sworn into the Planning Commission on May 20th in the clerk's office. I would like to take a moment again to thank our citizens for joining us in this new age of Zoom, YouTube, however we want to describe it. We recognize that this can be challenging for you as it is for us. I appreciate the citizens who took the time to provide us with their comments prior to noon today. All comments that were received prior to noon today that provided both the citizen's name and address will be made a part of the record for this particular meeting. Moving forward, let's go into unfinished business. Unfinished business. Let's see.
We lose.
Mm-hmm.
Bill 9404. Yeah, I think we lost him.
I think we lost
Yeah.
Terry.
It's frozen. Hopefully they'll come back. All right, Mayor
Hey,
Pro
Pro
Tem.
Is Paul,
Okay. Is he
Sorry about
really
that.
present?
yes,
Okay.
he's back.
Paula was ready to fill it. Thank you.
Technical difficulty.
Lori, can you have the second reading of Bill 9404?
Yes, an ordinance amending Chapter 215, Article 5 of the University City Municipal Code relating to offenses concerning public peace by enacting therein a new section to be known as Section 215.685, picketing before or about residence dwelling of any individual.
May we have the third reading?
An ordinance amending Chapter 215, Article 5 of the University City Municipal Code relating to offenses concerning public peace by enacting therein a new section to be known as Section 215.685, picketing before or about residence or dwelling of any individual.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion approved by Mr. Smotherson, seconded by Ms. Carr. Is there any discussion? I think everyone knows the most recent history about this, that this was erroneously left out of the recodification. I can't remember whether I had this conversation with you, with council before, but this actually was a rather significant piece of legislation during its time, because we had a citizen who was, just so everyone knows, a citizen who was very involved in the pro-choice movement. And there were a group of picketers that regularly picketed her home, and in particular the children. And the city council took it upon themselves to write this ordinance so that there'd be a little bit more peace for the kids at home and for the family. So that's the history behind this particular ordinance. Is there any other discussion?
We're having technical.
I'm sorry?
We're having technical problems. You're freezing.
Yeah, and if I get knocked off, please, Paulette, just take over. If I'm the cause of it, I'm not sure that I am.
Okay.
Let's see. Can you please call the roll, Ms. Reese?
Councilmember Carr,
Aye.
Councilmember McMahon,
Aye.
Councilmember Hales,
Aye.
Councilmember Kusick,
Aye.
Councilmember Smotherson,
Aye.
Councilmember Clay,
Aye.
Mayor Crowe.
Aye. Thank you very much. We now have before us bill number 9405. May we have the second reading?
An ordinance approving a First Amendment to redevelopment agreement in connection with the Olive Boulevard Commercial Corridor and Residential Conservation Development Plan.
May we have the third reading?
An ordinance approving a First Amendment to the redevelopment agreement in connection with the Olive Boulevard Commercial Corridor and Residential Conservation Development Plan.
May I have a motion to approve? Motion to approve by Mr. Smotherson, seconded by Ms. Carr. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion. Ms. Reese, would you please poll the council?
Councilmember McMahon,
Aye.
Councilmember Hales,
Aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Councilmember Kusick,
Aye.
Councilmember Smotherson,
Aye.
Councilmember Clay,
Aye.
Councilmember Carr,
Aye.
Mayor Crowe.
Aye. Thank you. The bill is passed. Now we have resolution number 2020. Is there a motion to approve? Motion to approve by Mr. Smotherson. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Kusick. Is there discussion, or Mr. Rose, would you like to speak to this in any way?
Honorable Mayor and council members, this resolution is intended to encourage the county executive to provide funding from CARES funds that were received by the county on a pro rata basis to the incorporated municipalities in St. Louis County. As I understand it from being on a conference call with him today, he has set aside about $47 million for that purpose. They're seeking a opinion from the treasurer, and so we're very hopeful that the county executive will allocate those funds for public safety for the various municipalities. But that's what this item does. This resolution simply encourages that expenditure on a pro rata basis.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kusick.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Rose, do you know what this would come back to us in terms of the amount of dollars? I know that I emailed you previously about this, which was probably premature, but do we have an idea of what revenue we're seeing that would come from this?
The presumptive expenditures that would be eligible to be approved is about $1.4 million. That's combined between police and fire. Now, that's not to say that that's how much we would be allocated, but that is the amount that we would be eligible for.
Thank you.
Mr. Clay.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Crowe. City Manager Rose, so if I'm hearing you correctly, these funds could only be used for police and fire, first responder type expenditures. Is that guidance that comes from the CARES Act itself, or is that something that the executive has decided?
That, Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Clay, that actually comes from the CARES Act itself.
Act itself, okay.
Yeah. Now, that's not to be confused because we're also seeking reimbursement of direct costs that
Right.
are outside of public safety. So for the time that I spend in finance spends, for example, we're going to pursue that directly through FEMA or SEMA. But these funds are specifically
Okay.
to cover our costs for public safety.
So are there two, so there's the CARES Act funds, there's the FEMA and SEMA funds. Are there any other funds through which we might be able to receive some semblance of wholeness throughout this? I know these funds aren't going to get us anywhere near whole, so let me take that back. Are there any more buckets of money we can tap into to help defray some of our losses?
I'm not aware of them. The conversation that they are having there at the federal level is whether they're going to allocate funds to address the revenue shortfalls that cities would realize because of the COVID-19. That's still just in discussion at this point. And so to answer your question, no, there's no other bucket that I'm aware of at this point. There could possibly be later on, depending upon what happens at the federal level.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the city manager? Hearing none, those in favor of resolution 2020-3, please signify by saying aye.
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 Mayor Pro Tem, I think he's frozen.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We have a new bill, 9406. Ms. Reese, would you please give this a first reading?
Mayor Pro Tem, if I might interject, you didn't ask for nays. I don't believe that there are any, but I think the question still has to be asked.
We didn't finish the other one. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So back to resolution 2020-3. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any nays? Okay, this resolution 2020-3 has passed. Now we're on to Bill 9406. Who would like to introduce? Mr. Clay?
Yes.
Mr. Clay will introduce. Ms. Reese, may we please have a first reading?
An ordinance to authorize the city manager to execute a contract between the City of University City and the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission providing for the Canton Avenue Improvement Project.
Thank you. Okay, we are now moving on to council reports and business. Are there any reports on any boards and commissions?
Yes, Mayor
Mr.
Pro Tem.
Cusick. Yes.
Thank you. I would like to tell everyone in the audience that's listening that our wonderful library has sent out a press release that beginning Wednesday, June 3rd, the public library offering curbside service to all of our patrons. And it's a free service. It will start on, again, Wednesday, June 3rd. It will go from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and from 1 p.m. on Saturday. So I would encourage anyone that would like to take part in this and receive any of those wonderful books or return books to check out the public library's main webpage, because all of the information will be on there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Steve McMahon.
Right.
Steve.
Steve, yes.
Steve? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just one note, I think everybody got an email from the Chair of the Parks Commission with their recommendations for capital improvements that was being transferred to the city after they did their work on it and it was finally approved. So we can look at that during the budget process. So if you haven't seen it, it's available and we can all look at that and move forward. And on appointments to commissions, just to make sure, I think at our next meeting, I will have an appointment, a nomination of Mark Holly to the Stormwater's Issue Commission. So I hopefully will have that done by the next meeting. Just want to let folks know that as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? So I would like to dovetail on Mr. McMahon's statement. There are about 4 or 5 members of the commission of the Stormwater Task Force that were technically involved and that would like to continue. So if you have any questions, at least these people know what's going on and what's been worked on, and they would be, in my opinion, worth considering. So I think that Mr. Cusick has the names of those people that agreed or expressed some interest.
Yes, that is correct,
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. All right.
Mr.
On,
Hales has it. Paulette, Mr.
sorry,
Hales has it.
Mr. Hales, okay.
Oh, can I just ask that those names be shared with us?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I can send out an email.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. So now we're moving on to other discussions and business. And this one, item A, pertains to resignation of myself from the council. So last fall, I began to plan for my retirement, and I, like most of you, didn't realize that COVID-19 was coming up on the horizon, and it appeared that things were going to go off normally. I intended to step off the council on the 27th of April and have plenty of time to sell my house, to move, to touch base with people, to have lunch with people, to say proper goodbyes. But as luck would have it, none of that came up. And the election, in fact, was postponed for actually about 2 months, about 60 days. So I continued, and I recently put my house on the market, and it sold very, very quickly. And I will be closing in a couple of days. And so that brings me to, since I won't own a place or have a place to live in, it brings me to the point of saying that we have an election upcoming, and I don't think it would be a very long time, but as our charter is written, I would resign. So what I would like to say is that my formal notice I have provided to the council. My last day will be the 28th of May at 5 o'clock. And I want to tell you how much I appreciate your support and your friendship. Over the last 8 years, it's been quite an experience, and one of which I am very, very proud. I also anticipate that that because we are in such good hands and moving in good directions, that good things will continue to happen. It has been my honor and my privilege to serve on the City Council and to serve the people of not only my ward, but University City. Thank you.
Paulette, thank you for your remarks and for all your service to the community. I think you have a few comments from our Brady Bunch group here on screen that would like to speak to you. I think Jeff Hales asked if he could go first.
Okay, Mayor, take over.
Thank you, Mayor. I did ask to go first, and of everyone on this screen, I have probably had the longest and most closest relationship with Councilmember Carr. And it started about 8.5 years ago, and she is unequivocally the reason that I not just got involved, but started paying attention. And for that, I am very grateful. I never in a million years would I have thought even growing up as a kid, I never even ran for student council. Never in a million years did I think I would be serving my community and in the position that I am. And I am very grateful to you for that. I sat in a lot of meetings when I was sitting on the other side of the bar from the dais, and there are many, many things that I think Councilmember Carr, that her legacy will live on for many years. I can remember many times her talking about growing up in Florida, and it was the Sunshine State and the open government. And as that legacy has evolved and many of us have gotten involved, we're streaming these meetings now, and we have been for 2.5 years. I don't think that we would have gotten to that point without Paulette. Our council meeting minutes are about as close to verbatim minutes as they get. And there was a time where the minutes were very vague. And she was a staunch supporter of making sure that our minutes reflect the conversations that we have as a body, not just now, but for future generations to look back and understand how we got to the decisions we got to. And I also want to say that Councilmember Carr is the epitome of what it looks like to be a representative who is responsive to his or her constituents. She was the person who gave a voice to people who were not being listened to. And at times there were many of them. I think I can't say this without acknowledging and thanking her husband, Jim, and her son, Peyton. Peyton's an adult and doesn't, lives in New York, but this role, and particularly her role, took a huge amount of sacrifice. And we had Paulette because they were willing to sacrifice and put up with a lot of time, a lot of, in some cases, drama. But thank you to both Jim and Peyton. So I do hope that our city will continue to feel her legacy for many years to come, and her contributions, frankly, I think hopefully long after all of us are gone as well. So thank you, Councilman Carr.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hales. Mr. Clay.
Thank you, Mayor Crow. When I received the letter of resignation from Councilmember Carr, certainly I knew it was coming. I knew of her plans. She had been very open about it. We had spoken about it, but it was still a real moment of reflection. I've had the privilege of serving this community both in both its elected municipal bodies, school board and city council. And the work of a municipal elected official is not the work of making speeches. It is not the work of presiding over grand openings. It is not the work of pontificating in a rostrum. It is nose to the grindstone, reading packets, responding to citizens, being versed in in a moment in forestry, in stormwater, in redevelopment, in parks and recreation. It is all these things. And what Councilmember Carr has done is brought a level of professionalism to that technical aspect, which, let's face it, isn't the most fun. It needs to be done. It's important that it's done. It is vital to our work. But Councilmember Carr really set an example, I think, for those who wish to serve in this community, either the board or commission level or at the municipal governance level, that it's about preparation. It's about the work. There will be a time, and you all know I like to squeeze the time for speechifying in. There's time for that. But the real work resides in the packets and understanding the charter and understanding how to leverage the tools of government to best support our citizens. And Councilmember Carr did that for 8 years, often under some extraordinarily difficult circumstances. She served this community. She did the work and did the work with a newsletter, I think 2 weeks ago. So it's not as if she got a case of senioritis. She was working up until the last bell. And that's an example I'll always take with me. And I appreciate your service. And you've truly been an example of what it means to be a public servant in municipal governance in this community, and really in this region and beyond. So thank you, Councilmember Carr.
Thank you.
Mr. McMahon.
Thank you, Mayor Crow. I think one of the credits to our city council in recent times has been to been looking forward and not looking back, and not digging up things from the past to talk about, because we've got issues to deal with moving forward. But times like this, it's okay to look back and talk about where we were, so we can understand where we are now. And part of that is to talk about Paulette and what she did while she was here for 8+ years, as she went into overtime with the election getting pushed back, which we all commend her. She didn't have to do that, and that's the nature of Paulette Carr. She will go above and beyond. She could have resigned when her term was up, and we would have been appointing somebody. But Paulette said, no, I'll do what I need to do, and I will help. And that's a great thing, and that speaks to her character. I, like Jeff, was awakened to the runnings and the practice of the University City Council and government through Paulette. There's no question that that's how I came to be where I am today, and I thank her for getting me involved. When Paulette started in her first election in 2012, the word on the street is it wasn't a lock. Paulette was only going to win if she worked hard, and she did. And she got a good considerable chunk of the vote, which I think was shocking to some people, that Paulette was able to do that, and to start shining a light on the way government was being run, and asking questions and digging in and telling people what's going on. And people were shocked. And what that led to in ways was not necessarily the warmest welcome when Paulette took the seat that she sits in on the dais. And she endured a lot in those first 4 years. That was 2012 up to 2016. A lot that she endured during that time period, and she weathered it. But in 2016, she didn't say, I've had enough. She didn't say, why am I doing this? I give up. Here's the white flag. She said, there's more work to be done, and I'm ready to do it. And that's what she did. And in 2016, she got almost 70% of the vote. 66% of the vote is what came in for Paulette in 2016. That's a huge number. If Paulette would have been Prop S&P, she would have passed. that's kind of the difference we're looking at. And she continued to work hard. And why did she get that kind of a number in that election? Because for Paulette, this isn't about Paulette. This isn't about the people that sit in the seats that she works with. It's always been about the citizens and residents she represents. And that's the focus. And if you make it your focus and you work hard in those and serving that, you will end up with the support that she has. And it's just an honor to have been seated next to her. It will be odd to not be seated next to her if we ever have live meetings again, because it was just a wonderful person to be seated next to on the dais, to have Paulette Carr right next to us and working with us and guiding us and helping us. So Paulette, I will miss you. I want to also thank Jim for his service to the community. He was chair of the pension board when I got on the pension board, and Jim helped guide that pension board. So thank Jim for his service as well. And this community will miss both you and Jim when you move on, and we wish you all the best. Thank you, Paulette.
Thank you.
Mr. Smotherson.
Well, my turn. Okay. Well, Paulette, the biggest thing that I can say, and I wish I had a sign, is thank you. And I want to do this. I want to thank you for 3 things, because they were important things that you and I worked on together, and they were critical things that happened in the 2nd ward and the 3rd ward. One of those things being Stormwater Task Force, 2nd being MSD, 3rd being Olive 170 Development. And I want to absolutely positively thank you for everybody in the 3rd ward, but for you, University City, simply because those were some critical issues and some critical events that happened in this city, and you will live forever with the accomplishments that we've done with those issues. And the way that you went with me down to MSD for those meetings. And I absolutely appreciate that, because that was an attack on not only the 3rd ward, but an attack on the 2nd ward. And so, and I appreciate your involvement and your help with that. And again, Stormwater Task Force, you've actually, with the accomplishment of that task force and now commission, we are now able to have some voice to the people that have flooding issues. And we didn't have that before. So hopefully, and again, it will accomplish what you set out to have that accomplished. So again, and of course the Olive 170 development, and I don't have to go into that, but I want to completely thank you for everything that you've done and your support of me, befriending me the way that you did, and even inviting me in your house. So I want to thank you to the bottom of my heart, and you will be missed. Thank you.
Mr. Kusick.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Carr, Dr. Carr, Councilmember Carr, Paulette. I actually have been debating on what I'm going to say to you for the last month or two, and words really do fail me, but there are things that come to mind, things that are true about you, your inspiration, your compassion, your commitment, and your integrity. You've worked selflessly for the 2nd ward and the constituents for many, many, many years, even before you were on the council. You have some tough shoes to fill, and we're going to try and do it, but I think that we have a tough act to follow. One of the things that I think is most important is your sense of dignity. You're leaving here with your head held high, and everyone is extremely appreciative of you and what you did. And I don't know what else to say other than when you're leaving here with your head held high, you leave here as a friend. Thank you.
Paulette, we realize that this is not the goodbye that any of us would have liked, but we also recognize that these are the uncharted waters that we are going through. As I prepared for tonight, I took a trip down memory lane and pulled up your first flyers for your first race. And it was kind of interesting for all of us to know that Paulette's 3 top priorities were economic development,
think we lost
intriguing
him.
to see how her 8 years have followed. I think we may be losing me again. Her 8 years have followed those 3 tenets upon which she ran. It's also intriguing to me that she said her greatest strengths were being independent, analytical, and tenacious. And I don't think anybody on this call could disagree with any of those 3. I think we would try to figure out which one is the 1, 2, and then 3. But at the same point in time, you left some of them off, but I know you wouldn't say this, and it would be passionate, compassionate, and probably the hardest worker I have ever been with. Now, when we got you 8 years ago on council, we got someone who was a chemistry teacher, a research scientist, an artist, a cancer survivor, a mother, and a wife. And all of those things rolled in to make you an incredibly special person. No one, I think we could all agree, and the people watching, no one comes more prepared to a commission meeting or a council meeting than you. At the same point in time, since I'm clearly the elder statesman now of this crew, no one is a better tutor, mentor, or teacher to the newer members of council than you have been. And as Blaine, I think, talked about, actually, there's a couple of you talked about, you know, the legacy really is amazing. The issues that you brought up, clearly Olive and 170 is there, but MSD, WashU, Stormwater Task Force. I mean, they're all things that weren't necessarily fun at all, but you took them on, you made them a part of who you are. And in that way, clearly you made us a much better place. I think Jeff said that he appreciated the sacrifice that Jim and Peyton made. And I would like to say that as well. When you ran for council and did more door knocking than any of us probably on this screen, you put your heart and soul into this. And I know that Jim and Peyton sacrificed as well. Now you get the opportunity to make up for some lost time with Jim and hopefully with Peyton as well. It is clear that you have given much to your community. What I have to say though is that all we can give you in return is our respect, our admiration, and our appreciation for the service you've given to our community. I know that Laurite is going to have a plaque for you that we give as you, hopefully that will find a place in your new home. But one of the things as I close, I would say, is that I think we all hope that our service to our community, that we leave our community in a better place than we found it. And I think we all can agree that you have left University City in a much better place than you found it. Thank you for allowing me to be your friend. Thank you for allowing me to be your friend through a friendship that was probably more by fire than we could ever have imagined when we first got together, because our trip down memory lane for Paulette and me would be one that would be quite a memory. But through it all, you held your head up. You acted with dignity and respect towards everybody around you, and you left this community a better place. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. It's enough, and it really deeply touches me. I hope I'm not going to cry. But no matter where I go, no matter where I set my feet, I will always be a Ucidian. Thank you.
Thank you very much for everything. We appreciate it. And with that, as I understand it from our city manager, we do not have an executive session tonight. That may be Gregory's parting gift to Paulette. We don't have one tonight. So
That is correct.
we will get Paulette's award to her, and I would welcome a motion. I don't know whether Ms. Carr would like to make the motion or not that we adjourn, or if you'd like us to make it for you.
Oh,
I'd be happy to make it, Terry.
Motion by Ms. Carr. Mr. Hales, is that a second, or do you have a comment?
I thought we had council comments after.
Oh, I apologize. I skipped that. Oh my gosh, I apologize. I can't even blame it on the internet connection. Mr. Hales.
So I did have a council comment in light of Memorial Day, and I will keep this very brief. So I live in University Hills at Warren and Kingsbury, and about a week and a half ago, I noticed an older gentleman go into the island, which I'm actually looking at out my window right now at. And there's a bench out there, and he placed a flag and a picture and a document. It was all laminated. And I went out there to see what it was. And there is a bronze plaque, and I believe he places it out there each year. But the bronze plaque is in memory of a young man named Matthew Clark, who was killed in action in Iraq in 2006. And it states that when he was 10 years old, and I have no idea who this young man was. I assume he likely may have lived in this neighborhood, but he raised money when he was 10 years old to put this bench in the island in this neighborhood. And so as we've just come through Memorial Day, I just wanted to recognize Matthew Clark and his contribution as a Lance Corporal in the U.S. Marines, and his contribution to clearly University City, but to our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Any other comments from members of council? And I am very pleased that you brought that up, and I apologize for skipping past that. And as the son of a World War II veteran, we are all very grateful. We are all very grateful. Hearing nothing else from my colleagues, Ms. Carr, a motion to adjourn. I believe it was seconded by, I think I gave it to Mr. Hales because he wanted to speak, but Mr. Hales, I think.
I'll second.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Ms. Carr, it's time for a walk on the beach. Enjoy
Indeed.
yourself. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.